Developed Linky, and as Shing said, it's basically a program, a website, an app, whatever you want to call it, that helps foster connections between students' own worlds, their own lives, and the content they're learning in class. It looks sort of like this. You'll get a walkthrough. I don't know how many people play with it over there, but let's go to the next slide. And connections, right? The fundamental basis of this is creating connections. Educators love connections. There's a whole bunch of them, but for example, things like text to self, text to world, text to text, right? How can you connect, if you're learning about the Bill of Rights in history class, how can you connect that to, issues like the stop and frisk policy of the NYPD or something like that, So we really wanted to address making connections as a goal for this program. And you get some really interesting stuff, right? I asked my students to connect the Roman Empire with America today, and we have a student made a connection with self-checkout machines, talking about unemployment and how machines are replacing jobs today, and how slaves and were replacing jobs in the Roman Empire. So I thought that was really cool. Mobile power is another thing that really excited us. So many students now have smartphones. Even a lot of low-income students have a smartphone. It's a recorder, it's a camera, it's a video recorder, and we how can we use this? Because they love their phones, right? And they're on their phones all the time. So that was the second thing we really wanted to build into our program. Third, visual learners, right? So we have a lot of students who have different intelligences. If you are an ed person, you may have heard of Howard Gardner's theory of intelligences, where there's different, people have different strengths and also different basically intelligences. One of them is visual. So we wanted to make a photo-based program which might help students who have trouble in some of, for example, crafting written arguments. This could help scaffold them up to that, through visual imagery. So that was the third thing. Social pride. Social networking is huge. Students really like to share what they do, and they're also really, really curious about what their classmates and friends do. So we want to bring both of those elements into our program as well, the ability to share your ideas and also see what your classmates are doing. Critical thinking. One of the biggest challenges when we were developing this was sort of getting the last stage, right? Students are collecting images throughout the process, but then we're like, okay, how do we know they really learned something from it? And we actually took us like a week of very intense conversations to think how can we push critical thinking in this program. In the end, we ended up using a forced choice design where students not only see their own images, but they see the images of the whole class, and they use it as a pool to answer an additional prompt to tie up the assignment together. So that's an element of it. And lastly, we also had debates over how narrow or broad this program should be. In the very beginning, we thought of some narrow uses, and in the end, we ended up finding that we were branching out, so that we wanted to make a program that almost any teacher could use in any discipline with any sort of assignment. And I think teachers I'm very protective of my classroom, and I won't always use something that I feel it doesn't fit well with my curriculum or one of my lesson styles. And this program we've used it in science classes, we've used it in history classes, there's math teacher applications, English, and even the assignments you choose can be quite broad. So we think that's a strength as well. So I will turn it over to Critical. Yeah, all right.
So that was Alex.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm Alex, and I should say I'm a history teacher. I forgot to say, I'm a history teacher at Townsend Harris High School. So. Yeah.
So my name is Pritika Nigaratna, and I work as a technologist on this project. And I'm going to walk you through what Alex just described. So right here, you're looking at the prototype. So I'm going to first show you what the experience is like as a teacher. So when you arrive on the site, it says, shows a welcome message. You can see all the boards that have been populated, and I can see all the students that have been working and what they've been working. I'm going to walk you through a sample board. So we're looking at a board called American Decline, which is the topic. And within the topic, there are several themes. Political strength, economic strength, these are all themes within American Decline. And this board has been created by a teacher, Alex actually. And students have been posting connections to this board. So we're looking at economic weakness, and this is an example of something a student posted. This picture shows that job loss doesn't hurt only the employee, it hurts the whole family. So this is something that a student thinks contributes to what is how it shows economic weakness in the United States, and this was posted by Julie Hoffman. Okay, so I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a board. So because I'm a teacher, I have the privilege of creating a board, which is as simple as going to this top level button, and I can fill out the board name or description. If I want an image, I can plug in an image that can be taken from the web or Flickr. And I can, once I've created the board, for example, how American Decline was created, I can add themes within the board, and that's also as simple as filling out a simple form, and that will add to the pool of tabs here. And once this board has been created, it's like open to students of this class, or just people who are using this tool to come in and start posting their connections. So I'm going to show you a walkthrough of what this looks like for a student. So I'm logged in as Luke Rundle, who is a student, and this is his account. There's not a lot of difference because the interface is pretty much very similar, except a lot of the privileges that teachers have are gone. For example, I can't create a board or edit stuff. But I can see all the boards that are here, and I'm going to check out what American Decline, which my teacher has assigned to me. I'm going to see what's going on over there. So I see, same thing. I can see what the prompt is. I can see all the themes, and I can see what my classmates have been posting. And I can click on Add a Connection, which will take me to this form, and I can upload a photo or plug a URL. And it's compulsory that I describe why I'm posting this connection. And then once I'm done, it'll post it to the board, and it'll appear right next to all the images that are here. If you guys have been playing with the prototype on the computer in the back, you'll be able to do this yourself. So I encourage you to try the tool out. So that was the first stage of how Linky is used. Another thing that we want to encourage teachers to be able to do is have a way to provide closure to the entire experience of posting photos. So say a teacher has spent a week encouraging students to post photos, and then you have like this giant library of photos that are related to American Decline. And then the teacher has the option of opening like a group, like an assignment that allows you to basically summarize your experience of what American Decline is. So as Luke, who's a student, I can be like, all right, I come back a week later, and I'm going to post, I'm going to go to the summary. So when I go to the summary, so this is so just to make it clear, this is a week later. So I'm coming back fresh to American Decline, and I see what teachers posted. So it says, look through the bank of images uploaded by our classmates. Is America on the decline, or are such fears imaginary? Explain. And pick 3 images from the image bank and provide 1 paragraph. So I can see, all the photos that have been posted under American Decline between different themes, and I can start to make an argument using three illustrated examples. So I can just pick maybe this image, and I want to pick this image, and I also want to take this image. And when I'm ready, I go next, and so it's going. You started a summary. I can see the prompt. I can fill something out. So I'm just going to use some kind of dummy text like. This shows American. I'm not a good student, so I'm not writing very much, but if I were a good student, I would have a lot to say. And of course, I can choose different photos if I wanted. When I'm done, I can just select the summary. And at that point, it'll be available to the teacher on the teacher side, and they can see what I've done. So thank you very much. I'm going to hand it over to Abe.
Hey everyone, I'm Abe. I'm a teacher who works at Bronx Arena Transfer High School in the South Bronx. So I'm going to take you guys through a couple of the experiences that our kids went through in our actual testing. So the first thing we did is we tried out our test in a setting where all students were in class at the same time on computers. So this is my classroom. This is 2 of my students who are working on a thing related to carnivores, omnivores, ecosystems. So their job in this picture was to actually find, an example of one of those things online, post it onto our group, and then actually give some kind of summary or be able to talk about it. So that's our first test. It was like in the classroom with the teacher in charge. Our second one was one that Alex did, and this is one where he actually changed the kind of format and setting of that learning. And he said, instead of doing it in the classroom, we're going to take it out and we're going to make this homework assignment. So that what students were actually asked to do is talk about your duties, or like some kind of duty that you face, duties to self, duties to family and friends, duties to jobs or professions. And then students over the course of the week were asked to go home and take pictures about one of those things, to actually represent duty in their lives. So to actually take this idea of learning and bring it back to the classroom, this kind of connected learning idea. So that students were actually going home and taking those pictures and bringing those ideas back to class. For the third test, and we did a couple of other tests in here, but these are for the sake of presentation. We'll just talk about this third test. The third one was one that I did with my class where my students went to the American Museum of Natural History. And I asked, over the course of the field trip, to go around and actually take pictures of different things in the museum. This was particularly interesting for me because one of the other teachers who was with me was an earth science teacher, and he used the site in a totally different way. So he went around and he actually asked kids to do a scavenger hunt and post stuff to the site, whereas I actually had a much more structured activity that was already embedded in Linky. We'll talk about what they had to do. So at the museum, and this was a lot of fun, the kids were given a mystery of very recently discovered dinosaur that nobody really knows anything about yet. And they were asked to go and find ecosystems that this dinosaur might live in. They were asked to go find what type, like what niche it would fulfill, and what kind of different environments it would be interested in. So we got a bunch of really cool different responses where kids were actually going around and taking pictures of the dioramas and analyzing the context in which this mystery animal might exist. So again, this was the third one. This is kind of like out in the on like a field trip experience, which I thought was really interesting. So I want to talk about the way that kids started making connections in these different contexts, and then we'll kind of expand and talk about how that can get into a larger area. So I saw some really cool connections on our AM&H field trip. One was a kid talking about actually using like content-specific language, yay, and then talking about ecosystem and other species that might eat because it's an urban form. I thought that one was really interesting. And then some in Alex's class were actually having pictures from outside where they're talking about civil liberties and actually taking this largely abstract context and then finding like a concrete real-world example of that thing. And that was really cool. Then I also want to talk about the kind of stuff. If you're a teacher, you've probably had this experience before. This was one of the ones in class that we did. The board name is Carnivores. That's what she posted. That's what you get when you put it into Google, right? So I think that like the Google problem is something, it's something that we spent a long time talking about. How do we facilitate a different mode of interacting with online stuff? Or how do we facilitate a new kind of connection instead of just put it into Google, there's your connection, Google did it for you. So, yeah, Google, maybe a problem. This was the same one in one of my other classes. We did a thing on conformity. Similarly, that was a larger issue. So I want to talk briefly about the kind of responses that we got from kids, which were really interesting and really integral into how we started developing and continue to work on this project. One of the things we found was that most kids really liked it. It's like 85% of kids who tried it were like, yeah, we're in. This is cool. We had like some people were neutral, but nobody was like, I did not like this thing. So that was very interesting. Oddly enough, on the one where she Googled tiger or whatever, like the girl who did that actually said, this was really useful for me because when I read carnivore in textbooks, I never really think about it, and then literally just doing that in and of itself, when I see carnivore, I think tiger now. Which is really interesting because I was like, oh, I hate you. Like, why'd you do that? Like, that's not what I want at all. But for her, that was a really integral and kind of interesting learning experience. And then over the content, the kids really enjoyed both uploading so that other people could see. That was kind of one thing they enjoyed. But the other things they really, really liked was seeing everything that everybody else posted and being able to build or take away from that larger idea. So I'm going to turn it over to Anna to talk about some questions.
So I'm Anna. I'm the other technologist in the team. And so I'm just going to go through the outstanding questions that came up through the user testing. The first point is in regards to content. We think that one of the strengths of Linky is its malleability. That it can be used for a breadth of subject matters, math, history, what have you, and it's really up to the teachers to input the content. With that said, the difficulty comes in when a teacher that hasn't used the platform yet is first using it, and how does he know how to build interesting content? Because the success of the activity is really dependent on the way the teacher phrases the questions and guide his student through the activity. So we've talked about an FAQ page. Maybe there needs to be more case studies or just concrete examples that teachers can go to when they're first using the app. Second point concerns context. So again, we have a lot of flexibility. We've done the homework assignment, the field trip, and also in-class exercises. The field trip and the homework were definitely the most successful, at least interesting, in that it's really in these situations that the platform allowed for a bridging of the gap between the in-class learning and the outside world, and making these interesting connections that they sometimes fail to do otherwise. With the different contexts, though, there's right now the platform was built for desktop use mostly. It is accessible on mobile devices, but we could imagine redesigning it, having buttons and uploading features that are more appropriate for smartphones. But maybe it's not the entire app. Maybe it's just a gathering aspect, and then the summary, for example, is left to the desktop device. Peer input, as Abe mentioned, was one of the big appeal for the students, being able to see each other's images. Not only, I think, because it's fun and it relates back to Facebook or social networking website, but it's, I think, a way if a student is stuck to get inspiration from their peer, or contradict each other and kind of build a conversation that way. With that said, we initially thought of maybe putting commenting options on the app. We tried it out, and we were getting pretty bland comments, so we took the whole feature out. We also played around with the idea of rewards, which we didn't get a chance to implement yet. But we're again afraid that it might lead to the same issues as commenting, where it's not really adding anything to a conversation. However, with the summary part, there's maybe an option where the student can see who used whose feature, and that's kind of a reward system in itself. And finally, with design, I think there's plenty of opportunity to make it more visually appealing, friendly. We need a logo, maybe a name change. I'm not sure. That's where we're at. But we'd love to hear from you and questions that you have. Thank you.
We have maybe 1 or 2, 5 minutes for questions. We'll see how fast that goes.
How are you rewarding stronger connections versus weaker connections to whatever the board is?
We talked about it. We thought about making like a badge system where a teacher or maybe other students could award for most creative photo or strongest connection. And we haven't implemented, but that was one idea. I don't know if we demoed it, but if you click on a student's name as a teacher, you can see all the photos they've uploaded, including their summary. So if you're a teacher and you want to assess it like an assignment, you don't necessarily have to go through the boards from the student view. You could do it student by student and then have a rubric or something that you could then give them back. That wouldn't necessarily be in program. It could be outside, but what's something that we're still talking
Yeah,
about?
and I think one of the many conversations that we had around this was that sometimes the one that kids think is the clearest connection might not always be the deepest connection, right? That there's a sense in which this happens all the time in classrooms. Everyone's like, oh, they said it, yeah, that's cool. Therefore it's the right thing. Which is just something in terms of conversation about the way that we go about structuring it has to be like very specific and very careful. So I think like it's something we talked about.
And I think Anna mentioned that the summary feature where you're picking other students' photos is like a way where, you know, we kind of, it's a reward system because, you know, we know it's a good photo or a good connection if the student is willing to use it in their summary because they're forced to use other people's stuff. So that's one of the ways that we are able to, student himself is able to evaluate, okay, that was a really good photo, and it was very relevant because, you know, so many students used it in their summary.
Okay, I have numerous questions, but I'm going to limit to two concepts that you guys might want to think about. One is using images appropriately and which ways they're being uploaded, because there's a little responsibility of taking pictures on the street, taking pictures from online, and etc. But then also the whole concept around pictures, right? They're talking about students being able to upload pictures. We got to remember the efficiency in time. I don't know what the time is looking like right now when it comes to uploading photos. How are they uploaded? Are they shooting an SMS text or an email to a certain folder on the site, and then the site will just, you know, upload it automatically? Because my students cannot take cell phones into the school building. We're not having it. They can't take any like technological devices into the, you know. So it's a lot of different things around that I'm still trying to figure out. Like, will it even be beneficial, right, for some students to even try to use this?
I think one thing we talked about designing was definitely safety features. You know, what happens when a student uploads a completely inappropriate image. For our prototype, we didn't build it in there, but it's obviously a concern for for some people. And as far as time goes, if it's, you know, inside school, you know, it can be totally done from a laptop through web images. But if you want it from a cell phone, you know, you can either take it, I mean, it's sort of the choose the file button just lets you pull an image off your cell phone. So I know if you have an iPhone, it can actually let you take the photo right then, just by hitting the click button, but it can also let you pull from your like photo stream or your folder of photos. So if a student was using it outside of school, they could take a whole bunch of photos and then upload them later or upload them immediately.
And this is what, like, this is the assumption. So you have a series of assumptions that also got to be clearly identified when you're presenting this product, because we're assuming a lot with technology and students have that stuff, and what we talked about.
Yeah, and so I think to kind of address that concern, this is one of the reasons that we talk so much about like, how we're actually going to design the site. So like one of the reasons we chose website originally rather than an app on the phone is because of that accessibility issue, right? That some kids are not going to be able to go home and do this on a phone because you might not have a smartphone. You know, you might have old school block phone. So we tried to make something that was like relatively dynamic, and it's a great like the tech divide is like a massive problem, and it's worth considering.
We'll take one more question, and we'll have time to end for general, but we just, I don't know, you guys choose, I'm not choosing.
In the back, someone in the back.
Yes.
All right.
Sure. I was just going to ask if you guys have thought about broader impact of this. So when I signed in as a teacher, is everything private, and what my students submit is only private to me viewing it? Because what's really interesting now with kind of these ideas of big data is around, if I'm a science teacher in, say, New York City, it would be cool to also see what a science teacher in California, what their students are posting, and also to have like social statistics on each photograph that's uploaded into this database. So on that zebra photograph, how many other people have used it? What tags have they associated it with? In what context have they, posted it? So I think there's some really interesting additions that you guys could kind of add into your system, but have you thought about that kind of broader impact idea, or is it still very private tool for teachers?
Private tool for teachers, I
That's
guess.
where we've been going, but that's a very cool thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, like this is like supposed to be like a proof of concept. So
Right,
yes,
right.
there's a lot of additions that we could introduce. Like for example, like you see everybody's boards all the time. Like that's like, so technically we could open it up to a teacher in California who could do it, and I could see their board. But I think the first thing we have to build is a way for grouping classes. So you have a teacher's board, and all their students see only their stuff. So I mean, there's a lot of extra capabilities that we could add to implement those features.
Or even the ability to make your stuff public and then like discoverable by other people within that network. So it's about
creating and connecting a teacher network, because there are so many other sites where I can create a blog, I can create a wiki and do similar behaviors, but if you have some sort of draw where it's also like, but I could actually learn or understand how other people are using images in different contexts, I think then it becomes a little bit more powerful. But great work, I really enjoyed it. So.
We're going to move a little bit along just because we have 2 other teams, so we'll have time for our other conversation. So as they're switching out, thank you, team. And